I'm Diane, standing here, in the heart of my bakery on the day of its grand expansion. I look out at the faces in the crowd. My parents, brother, and sister are seated in the front row, looking expectant. But they have no idea what's about to unfold. It all started over 2 decades ago. My parents, Richard and Elizabeth, were a typical couple in our small town of Millfield. Richard was a mechanic, always covered in grease, with a gruff exterior but a heart that was supposed to be full of love. Elizabeth was a homemaker, but she had a knack for manipulation. They had 3 children, my older brother, Jake, my younger sister, Lily, and me, the middle child. One fateful evening, when I was 8 years old, we sat around the kitchen table. The air was thick with tension. The old wooden table had a crack that seemed to symbolize the breaking of our family. Jake was fidgeting, and Lily was half asleep on Elizabeth's lap. Richard cleared his throat and said, "Your mother and I have decided to live apart for a while." Jake looked up, his eyes wide with confusion. "Like a divorce?" he asked. Richard quickly replied, "A separation. Different thing." But we all knew it was the beginning of the end. Elizabeth then explained that she would be moving to an apartment near her sister in the next town. She would take Lily with her, and Richard would stay in the house with Jake. He needed help at the auto repair shop, and Jake was old enough to assist after school. I sat there, my heart pounding. "What about me?" I asked. Richard rubbed the back of his neck, and Elizabeth adjusted Lily on her hip. "We'll figure something out, sweetheart," they said, avoiding my eyes. Even at 8, I knew what that meant. I was the odd one out, too old to be the cute little sister, and too young to be of much use. 2 weeks later, a social worker named M.S. Jenkins drove me to St. Mary's Orphanage. Richard followed in his old truck. He carried my old suitcase to the front steps and set it down like it was a package. "I'll come back for you," he said, patting my head like I was a stray dog. Then he got in his truck and drove away, and I watched the taillights disappear. St. Mary's was a dilapidated building. The playground had a rusty swing set and a basketball hoop with no net. Inside, the hallways smelled of bleach and old books. I was given a bed in a room with other girls. The girl in the next bed, Sarah, told me about the rules and that Chef Henry was strict about breakfast time. I didn't cry that first night. I counted the days instead. Day 1, day 2. By day 7, I stopped looking out the window for my father's truck. By day 30, I stopped flinching when the door opened. By day 90, I stopped expecting anyone to come for me. Richard called me once, 6 months later. The conversation was short. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "Good." "Good," he said, and then hung up, saying he had a customer waiting. Elizabeth never called. I later found out that she told people I was living with a wonderful foster family in the city. The first person who truly saw me was Chef Henry. He had big, calloused hands, always covered in flour. He was a former chef at a fancy restaurant who came to the orphanage because he wanted to give the kids something more than just a meal. One night, I couldn't sleep. The noisy roommate, the uncomfortable bed, and the constant hum of the old heater kept me awake. I followed the smell of butter melting in a pan and found Henry in the kitchen, prepping cinnamon rolls for the next morning. "Lost?" he asked. "No, sir," I replied. "Hungry?" "No, sir." "Then pull up a stool and help me," he said. He didn't ask about my parents or give me that pitying look. He just handed me a ball of dough and told me to knead it. From that night on, I became a regular in the kitchen. Henry taught me everything about baking. "Baking is like a science," he said. "Follow the recipe, and you'll get the result. It doesn't matter where you come from." I held on to those words like a lifeline. On my 9th birthday, which no one at the orphanage knew about, Henry gave me a small, worn-out notebook. "Write down every recipe you learn," he said. "Someday, it'll be your treasure." I wrote apple pie. Chef Henry says start simple on the first page. Over the next 10 years, I was placed in 3 different foster homes. The first family, the Smiths, had too many kids and not enough space. I slept on a pull-out couch for 11 months. The second family wanted a younger child and sent me back after 3 months. The third family, the Johnsons, were nice, but they moved to another state and couldn't take me with them. Throughout all these moves, I always carried Henry's notebook. By the time I was 16, it was full of recipes I'd copied from library books, cooking shows, and my own experiments. I aged out of the foster care system when I was 18. They gave me a check for $500 and a folder of documents. I took my suitcase and the notebook and left, determined to make a life for myself. I moved to the nearby city of Fairview. I found a small room above a laundromat. It was cheap, but it was mine. I walked into a local bakery, the Sweet Spot, and asked if they were hiring. The owner, Mr. Thompson, looked at my sneakers and my suitcase and asked if I could bake. I said yes, and he put me to work washing dishes. After a few months, Mr. Thompson noticed me fixing a batch of dough that the other baker had over-kneaded. I added a bit of cold butter, just like Henry had taught me. Mr. Thompson tasted it and was impressed. He moved me to the prep line. That's when I met Mrs. Miller. She came to the bakery every Thursday for a cinnamon scone and a cup of black coffee. She was a retired bakery owner and volunteered with a program for kids aging out of foster care. One day, she noticed my notebook and sat down to talk to me. Over the next year, Mrs. Miller taught me about running a bakery. She taught me how to calculate costs, negotiate with suppliers, and read a commercial lease. She was tough, but fair. More lemon zest, less sugar. You're baking for adults, she'd say. One day, she told me, when you're ready to open your own place, I'll co-sign for you. And she did. When I was 26, I signed the lease for a former sandwich shop on Elm Street. Mrs. Miller co-signed and loaned me $15,000 with no interest. I named the bakery Diane's Delights, after myself and the flour that taught me patience. I worked long hours, making everything from scratch. The first year was a struggle, but the second year brought stability. By the third year, the local paper ran a feature on my bakery, calling it a hidden gem in the city. But then, after all these years, my family reappeared. Richard called me first, then Elizabeth, and then Jake. They called non-stop, 43 calls in a single week. I invited them to the grand opening of my expanded bakery, thinking it was a chance for closure. As I stand here, holding the microphone, I take a deep breath. I start by thanking the people who truly supported me, Mrs. Miller, Chef Henry, and my friend and employee, Tom. Then I turn to my family. I didn't grow up with a family, I say. When my parents separated, they each chose a child, and I was left at the orphanage. I spent 10 years in the foster care system, moving from one home to another. I hold up Henry's notebook. This notebook is full of recipes taught to me by people who chose to care about me, not by blood, but by choice. This bakery is built on their love and support, not on a family name. Elizabeth stands up, tears in her eyes. The circumstances back then. We didn't have a choice, she says. I reach into my pocket and pull out a letter. This is a letter you wrote to Richard a month after you left me at the orphanage. You said, she's better off there. If we take her back, people will ask questions. You gave me up because it was convenient. Elizabeth's face turns white. Richard looks down, ashamed. Jake sits there, silent. The room is dead silent. Then Mrs. Miller stands up and starts clapping. Slowly, others join in. After the grand opening, things changed. Richard's auto repair shop was on the verge of bankruptcy. He had gambled away a lot of money, and the bank was calling. Elizabeth had been involved in a charity scandal at her church and was looking for a way to redeem herself. Jake sent me a text saying he was sorry for not looking for me. I replied, "Thank you. That's a start." My bakery continued to thrive. I hired more staff, and the community supported me. I also started a baking class for kids in the foster care system, just like Henry had done for me. Looking back, I realized that I built my own family, one recipe at a time. The road was long and hard, but I wouldn't change a thing. Because in the end, I found my place in the world, and that's something no one can take away from me. If you're out there, going through a similar situation, know that you're not alone. You can build your own family, your own life. Just keep showing up, and the dough will rise.